She does a lot for your family. Mother's Day is your chance to show her you see it, with a gift from a brand trusted for generations to help people get the moment right. 1-800-Flowers. With double blooms from 1-800-Flowers, buy 1 dozen roses and get another dozen for free. It's a bigger gesture, backed by 50 years of experience delivering fresh flowers, so you can feel confident sending something that lands. Show up for her with double blooms at 1-800-Flowers.com/podcast. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/podcast.
Hey friends, welcome to a new episode of Scott Fox After 9. Before I get into the content on today's episode, which is mainly going to feature the Prime Minister and opposition leader Pierre, along with some sports to start things off, I just want to take a second to talk about what I talked about on Friday. I told you about my good friend Dave Blizzard, former co-host for a long time. We were on the radio together. Dave's been my boss at one point. We were roommates at a time. We go way back. And one of the things that Dave is dealing with right now is his young daughter, Ellie, who is 3 years old, has been diagnosed with cancer. And that's going to require Dave and his wife, Crystal, to travel to the U.S. They're going to have to get some very specialized treatment for Ellie to try and attack this cancer and get her back to a normal existence for a 3-year-old. So they need to raise some money, and I put out a challenge. The GoFundMe target on Friday was $16,000. And I said, if you're able to donate, please do. And if we can get above the $16,000 target before the weekend is over, I will give you the best of Dave Blizzard in this podcast. I'm really happy to say that it's approaching 22,000. Not only did we hit the goal, we blew way by it, and that is money that is going to go a long way for Dave and his family and Ellie as they go through this treatment and this journey that they're about to go on. So thank you to everyone who has donated. It's not too late, by the way. If you would like to donate, I will make sure that the link to the GoFundMe is in the description of this episode as well. $10, $20, $100, whatever it is you can donate, it would go a long way. But now it's time to pay up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a regular episode of After 9 right here, right now. This is what is going to get you caught up on what happened this weekend and what's going to happen heading into this week. There's going to be another episode that drops later on. It's going to be about 20 minutes. And I'm going to be honest with you, trying to narrow down the best of a brilliant broadcaster like Dave is extremely difficult. There are hours and hours and hours of tape. So what I did was I put together just 20 minutes of the best of Dave. And he is such a funny guy. I have a feeling you're going to laugh your butt off when you're hearing at least parts of this Best of Dave podcast that's coming out later on today. When you hear it, just know that is the guy whose family you are helping when you make a donation to that GoFundMe to help out Dave and his family. So keep an eye out. There is another episode today. It is called The Best of Dave, and that is me paying up, making good. You did the donations. Now I will make sure that I make it right by publishing that extra episode. Keep in mind, by the way, some of this stuff was recorded 25 years ago. Some of it is very, very old, but it'll give you a sense of who Dave is and the kind of guy that he is. And hopefully that'll make you want to donate to that GoFundMe and help him out. I really don't know what else to say about this because, frankly, I'm still trying to wrap my mind around a 3-year-old with cancer. It's a completely appalling story, and I'm just glad Ellie's getting the treatment she needs, and I thank everybody who made a donation. Now I'm going to jump into this episode. I'm going to start off with a little bit of sports. As a former Leafs fan, I'm not a Leafs fan anymore. I gave up on them after last season, and frankly, that made this year a lot easier to swallow. Seeing how poorly the Leafs did, seeing some of the decisions they've made and the ones they are still making, I'm kind of happy that I jumped off the bandwagon. But still, having been a Leaf fan all my life, it's a little weird to hear that the Montreal Canadiens are Canada's team. But it appears the Montreal Canadiens are now Canada's team. Round 2 against the Buffalo Sabres is going to be wild. There's going to be a lot of Canadians down in Western New York over the next couple of weeks, and I'm here for it. Go Habs, go. But I don't necessarily want to talk about the Habs in this episode. I kind of want to talk a little bit about the Edmonton Oilers. What a tragedy. 2 trips to the Stanley Cup final. They didn't win a cup. Now they're out after the first round of this year. No chance of going for a third time. I want to play a little bit of what Connor McDavid had to say after he got eliminated, and then the news conference that happened this weekend.
Your team didn't have that you had last?
They played very fast, and we weren't very fast. It was just the opposite. They had a good start. We didn't, chasing the game.
What was it about your game that you found it in spurts, but you just couldn't maintain it? I guess what did you see out there in this?
I mean, that's been the whole year. We've been searching for consistency all year. Obviously, we didn't find it here in the playoffs.
You're why? I mean, it seems like it goes back to game 1. It's been all year searching. Any way to put your finger on how come it was so hard to find the overall game this season?
That was tough. We were an average team all year. An average team with high expectations, you're going to be disappointed. We just never found it.
Wow, Connor McDavid with a very bleak assessment, but one that I think fans generally appreciate, especially after a team gets eliminated from the playoffs. When you're an average team with high expectations, you're going to be disappointed. Well, I don't know how Edmonton's management felt about their captain going out there and being so bleak in his assessment of how the season went. Connor McDavid did a year-end news conference over the weekend, and this is what he had to say. He's doubling down.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's only a couple days ago I made those comments. So obviously feel the same as I did a couple days ago, and agree with Leon that the organization as a whole is taking a step back, and that starts with me. Starts with Leon. We all can be better, and we all need to be better, Yeah.
What else do you say, right? Expectations were very high, but they didn't do enough in the offseason. They didn't do enough whatever to get them back to a cup for a third time, if that's even possible in this era. I don't know. Oilers general manager Stan Bowman talking about Connor McDavid's comments.
So after the loss, Connor McDavid referred to the team as average. Mm-hmm. He's expressed an intense desire to win here. He's on a short-term deal. When you hear Connor say that he feels the team was average, how does that resonate with you? And are you concerned it's not heading in the right direction for his long-term future here?
Well, I think just looking at the way the team played, I think that it was one of those years where we were average for a lot of the year. I think the way I took that comment was in previous years we've had stretches where we've been able to really get our game going and dominate and win 5, 6, 8, 10 in a row, and also have some losing streaks. This year was strange in the sense that other than, I think, twice, we never won more than 2 games in a row. I think we did twice. We won 3 and 5 in a row. So from that perspective, it was a strange year. It wasn't something that we were used to, and it wasn't what we wanted. We wanted to try to find our game. And I think when you listen to what some of the players said, I agree that we weren't able to ever get our momentum during the season to establish that, I guess, swagger that you need in order to be able to overcome adversity that you're going to face.
Disappointing. I know there's a lot of people that were hoping this would have been the year for Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers, but it wasn't meant to be. But that's sports, though. Man, it will get you incredibly high, and it will break your heart in the same week. It's insane. And I know that as a Toronto Rock fan. They won Friday night at home at TD Coliseum, 1 win away from going to the NLL championship, and then they just bombed in San Diego yesterday. So there's going to be a game 3 Saturday night in Hamilton. The winner goes on to play for the Cup. The Raptors season is over. I don't think the players have anything to be ashamed of. They are a good young team, and you know who knows that very well? RJ Barrett.
Also, how hard we played, one with having a lot of guys that literally had no playoff experience at all. Being down 1 starter, being down 2 starters. Like, guys just came in and gave it their all, and we've always had a next man up mentality. And I think that we always believed that, we could play at this level. Obviously, this loss hurts, but I think it also shows the rest of the league, the rest of the world, what it is we're building here, and that when you see the Toronto Raptors, you're gonna have a dogfight.
Damn right about that, RJ Barrett. Enjoy the offseason. I think next year is going to be another great year for Toronto. This was a good year for Toronto. They exceeded expectations and making a statement again in the NBA. Last one on sports before I move on to some of the newsier type things. Here is Raptors head coach Darko Rajakovic.
That's why I'm saying I'm really, really proud of this group and the fight that they brought. Not just in the game tonight, but the whole series and the whole season. I think that we created a culture that we are one of the hottest playing teams in the league. We put a lot of pride in that. Our main guys, they love to play that way. They're embracing to play that way. So really proud of the campaign we had this year.
Well said. All right, friends, let me jump into the content now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and forth because I've got alternate news conferences to play for you. Over the weekend, Pierre Poilievre did quite a bit of media. Good to see him in Southern Ontario and the GTHA. A lot of people out to see Pierre and meet Pierre, and I think that's fantastic. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Carney has again jetted off to Europe. Number one, he has announced a lot more money for Ukraine. And number two, he is again giving indications that Canada is going to start becoming a lot more in line with the European Union. I'm going to start off with some remarks that the Prime Minister made earlier this morning, our time, over in Europe. He was talking about the rupture.
The world is undergoing a rupture across several dimensions. In technology, in energy, in commerce, and geopolitics. Integration is being used as a weapon by some, and the rules are not constraining the hegemons. Now, we have to actively take on the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. We know nostalgia is not a strategy, but we don't think that we're destined to submit to a more transactional, insular, and brutal world. And gatherings such as these point to a better way forward. I think I'll close my remarks with a few observations on strategic autonomy, recognizing that security and prosperity today extend well beyond the traditional areas of food, energy, and defense, important as they are, to include space-based communications, semiconductors, digital sovereignty, critical minerals, independent payment systems, clean energy, and vaccines. And our strategic imperative is to build these sovereign capabilities with the most trusted partners, and that creates enormous opportunities for partnership between Canada and Europe. We view ourselves as highly complementary to your economic and security goals. That's demonstrated through the work we're doing with the presidencies on the new EU-Canada Strategic Partnership of the Future, building deeper relationships from digital to defense, supply chains to security. We're honored to be the first non-European country as part of the EU SAFE initiative. We would observe that in the last year, we have struck $18 billion worth of critical minerals deals across 20 of the world's leading critical minerals. The way to look at this is we are warehousing these to look for government-to-government deals with our close partners and under the rubric of the G7 first and foremost, but then more broadly. We're working with European partners across the technology stack, from hardware, cloud infrastructure, artificial intelligence, and space. And as we'll discuss later, we are an energy superpower, third largest oil producer, fourth largest natural gas, largest hydro renewable base. We're committed to addressing climate change while providing reliable, affordable energy to our citizens and partners.
Wow, it's like he copied his own Davos speech. Mark Carney is a self-professed European citizen. He said in the past he is a European citizen. He identifies as a European. Okay. Well, he's the Prime Minister of Canada now, and he's got a choice. He can work out a deal with the Americans, or he can try and make Canada part of the EU, either formally or informally, and he is far more interested in making us part of the EU. The sense I get from talking to a number of people, though, is that a lot of Canadians are not interested in being aligned with the European Union. The EU has got a lot of issues, and I don't know what the appetite is in Canada to inherit even more issues beyond the ones we've already got. Here is one more minute of Prime Minister Carney's speech to European officials earlier this morning.
In closing, we're here because of your invitation. Again, thank you for that. But we're here because of the moral and security imperatives of our cooperation in the Caucasus, in the Baltics, in Ukraine, across Europe, and also because of the immense potential for our partnerships to build a better, more prosperous, sustainable, and just world for our citizens. And I'll close with this. It's my strong personal view that as the international order will be rebuilt, but it will be rebuilt out of Europe.
It will be rebuilt out of Europe, will it? Well, I guess that remains to be seen, doesn't it, Prime Minister? I just wish people could see it. You know, I wish people could see it. And I know there's people right now thinking the exact same thing. Why don't people see it? Why don't people see that what's going on here is an intentional attempt to avoid making a deal with the Americans because the Prime Minister never wanted to deal with the Americans. He's always wanted to take us to Europe and align us with China. That's always been the plan. I can't see it any other way. You know, I think back to a year ago and I was optimistic too. Oh, okay, all right. He says he's going to get a deal done. But when that first deadline got missed and the second deadline got missed and the third and the fourth, and then we find out they haven't even talked in 5 months. Doesn't all of this make much more sense? I played some of the Prime Minister. That was him speaking this morning over in Europe. Now let's go to a news conference yesterday in Toronto for some of the Q&A with Pierre Poilievre.
Hi, Sheehan with CBC here in Toronto.
Hi, Sheehan.
A question for you. The Prime Minister has suggested Canada's energy will not be used as leverage in negotiations with the United States, and also questions further integrations in that sector at this time. Do you think energy development should be focused elsewhere?
So if energy and minerals are not going to be leverage for Canada in these negotiations, what leverage does Mr. Carney claim to have? He's already made a bunch of unilateral concessions and gotten absolutely nothing in return except double the tariffs on Canadian steel, aluminum, and lumber. And now he can't tell us what leverage we have, what demands he's making, what tariffs he wants to get removed, and when and if he will even get a deal at all. So it's all been an illusion with Mark Carney. Of course, our energy and minerals should be positive leverage in these negotiations. Let's be clear. We're never going to cut our American allies off of our energy or selling our resources. They buy twice as much as the rest of the world combined buys from Canada. But we can offer in the negotiations to build up our resources in a way that helps our continental security, that keeps both of us safe, strong, and rich. We have 10 of the 12 NATO minerals needed to fight a war. I was just yesterday at Port Coburn's refinery of cobalt, and where they refine cobalt and nickel. They make enough cobalt there for 75,000 F-35 fighter jets, to put it into perspective. If that's not leverage, I don't know what is. What I want to do is build up a massive strategic reserve of our energy and our minerals and use that as leverage to get tariff-free access to the United States economy, the most lucrative economy anywhere on earth. That will make us richer at home, more affordable at home, stronger at home, with unbreakable leverage abroad. Thank you.
So what Pierre Poilievre is suggesting here is that Canada take all of our minerals and things like that, and we mine them, and then we start creating a strategic reserve. And anybody who has a tariff-free relationship or any ally of Canada's will have access to that reserve if there becomes an emergency situation where they need access to it. And the Americans are likely going to need access to a secure pile. Why is it that Mark Carney said we're not going to leverage our critical minerals to get a deal done with the Americans? Well, let's go back to the clip I just played a few minutes ago. Sounds like he's saving those critical minerals for Europe.
We would observe that in the last year, we have struck $18 billion worth of critical minerals deals across 20 of the world's leading critical minerals. The way to look at this is we are warehousing these to look for government-to-government deals with our close partners and under the rubric of the G7 first and foremost, but then more broadly. We're working with European partners.
Okay, so I mean, it sounds like he wants to sell them to Europe, not to the Americans. I wonder if that's going to be helpful to Canada in trying to negotiate a deal with the Americans, or if that's going to be a major issue in trying to work out a deal with the Americans. I don't know, but let's move on. The Prime Minister did a news conference this morning. It started off a little strange, but let me give you some of the audio.
Most efficient use for your time? Okay, you have two options. The first option is I drone on for 12 of the 13 minutes or whatever it is, and take one question. And the second is that I take your question. So okay. Alors, vas-y donc.
Sir, Ukraine, fairly significant announcement today. What's that going to buy?
Well, there's a system. It's actually we started ramping up a little more than a year ago. It's basically the prioritized military equipment for the Ukraine. So it's prioritized by Ukraine. The Pearl acronym is prioritized Ukrainian. And so there are a series of packages that are made available. Canada has participated in a number of them. They're not divisible as packaged. You can't send part of a missile system. You have to send the whole thing. And with this money, we're going to be able to complete one of the packages with some Nordic partners, with Belgium and others. So the President was not surprising. President Zelensky was grateful. I'd stress a couple of things, and then I'll hand back. The first is that the munitions are being made available. Munitions, a broad, loose term, being made available by the Americans. So it's a question of financing and getting them there. We're doing that. We're getting them there. That's the first point. Second, we had made a commitment earlier this year in February, $2.4 billion for Ukraine, Canadian. So this is part of that overall commitment. We're continuing to provide it. It's part of a bigger puzzle in a conflict where Ukraine is gaining some advantage.
Okay, more money for Ukraine. It's interesting how it works. When Joe Biden was in office south of the border, they were just sending everything over to Ukraine. Money, weapons, you name it. They were sending it all. And then Donald Trump took over as president, and he said, well, hold on a second here. This isn't our war. We're not going to continue doing it like this. But what we will do is if any of the countries that do want to help out Ukraine, if they want to help out, they can buy military equipment from us, and we'll send it to Ukraine. So now it's worked out that the U.S. went from handing over tons and tons and tons of money to Ukraine to now they're making money off of this. All the other countries that want to buy things like missile defense systems for Ukraine buy it from the Americans, and then the Americans ship it directly to Ukraine. They're making money off of this. And at a time when Canadians are broke, I mean, that's a tough one to swallow for a lot of Canadians. We are sending a lot of money overseas right now. And people are wondering, what about us? What about us here in Canada? Are we going to take care of our own before we start taking care of others? That's a debate that's been happening for years, specifically when it comes to the situation in Ukraine.
Owning a home is full of surprises. Some wonderful, some not so much. And when something breaks, it can feel like the whole day unravels. That's why HomeServe exists. For as little as $4.99 a month, you'll always have someone to call. A trusted professional ready to help, bringing peace of mind to 4.5 million homeowners nationwide. For plans starting at just $4.99 a month, go to HomeServe.com. That's HomeServe.com. Not available everywhere. Most plans range between $4.99 to $11.99 a month your first year. Terms apply on covered repairs.
Back to Pierre Poilievre from this weekend in Toronto.
Hi, Pierre. Just wondering if you have a view on the Ontario government's proposal to increase the size of Billy Bishop Airport to encourage more economic development.
Not only do I have a view, but I think it was 3 years ago, I called for the government to immediately issue permits to expand the Billy Bishop Airport. This is great for the economy, for the environment, and for convenience. Like, this is the business district of our biggest city. Why would we not want business travelers to arrive in our business district? It would allow us to have long-haul international flights from the heart of Toronto. It would take traffic off the highways between downtown and Pearson, and it would allow us to expand our air transportation. Also, Pearson is a disaster. Why is Pearson so bad? Because there's no competition for many of its flights. By extending the runway, Pearson would have to fight for more air transportation traffic and perform better. I want to see better air transportation at a lower cost that leaves on time for a change, and that requires competition in our biggest city. My only question is why did the Liberals, the Carney-Trudeau Liberals, kill the expansion of the Billy Bishop Airport back in 2015? And the answer is because their gatekeeping approach is all about blocking opportunity and jobs. We need the opposite. We need to open up construction, build more, faster, now. I'm unequivocal. I'm for more flights, for more competition, for lower costs, for an expanded Billy Bishop Airport.
I don't understand the expansion to Billy Bishop Airport personally. I know that it would be closer to downtown if someone could land a jet right in the island airport. Great, I suppose. I'm just, I don't know what the problem is with Pearson. I mean, didn't they spend billions of dollars to build the UP? That's the Union to Pearson Express. It's a train that goes directly there. I'm really not quite sure why this airport expansion needs to happen, or how many more flights or how many more people it's going to bring to Toronto, what they're going to do when they get there. I really don't know. Pierre says he's in favor of the expansion to Billy Bishop Airport.
Well, there's an enormous environmental benefit, of course, because it will take cars off the road. Instead of having to fly to Pearson and then fight your way through traffic in a taxi or an Uber, you'll be able to fly right to your downtown destination, and that will reduce traffic on our highways and therefore pollution for the country. I also think it would be great for the economy. It will bring more tourism through Toronto because people will think, hey, it's just gotten that much easier to go to the city centre. It'll mean more business trips arrive from global financial capitals to Canada's financial capital. So it is a win-win. All we need is governments to get out of the way. This is a massively profitable expansion that will pay for itself through the fees that the airlines themselves pay when they land. So let's get the government out of the way and let's get it built.
Okay, I understand what he's saying. I just don't know that I accept the argument. Because nearest I can tell, we're not going to have direct flights from, say, London, England, or from Paris, or from Beijing, or from Washington, well, maybe Washington. But a lot of those foreign destinations won't be landing at the island airport anyway. And what message does that send to people? Come to Toronto. If you can't get a flight to the island airport, though, good luck, because it's awful. I mean, Pierre just outlined it, and he's not wrong. The traffic is atrocious. It's terrible trying to get from the airport to downtown Toronto. But again, we do have the UP Express. I'm just a little worried about mixed messaging here, but hey, whatever. I don't really care per se. I'm just a little skeptical on the numbers here and why this is such a great idea. But I'm open to hearing some suggestions.
Why so significant for Canada, for you to be here and, as you say, deepen these relationships? Because it does, if you turn back time maybe 12 months, it might look a little unusual. It's getting more normal. But why, in your mind, in 2026 is this so important?
Well, a couple of things, Graham. A lot's happened in the last 12 months, and some of it we saw coming, but more of it has occurred. And the importance of alliances with reliable partners, deepening those alliances has become ever more so. I list very quickly all the ways we're working with the European Union already. Right here in Armenia, as monitors, only non-European country doing that. We're the only non-European member of SAFE, which is a defense arrangement very good for Canadian business because it makes us stronger. We have these partners we can work directly, good for our businesses, defense businesses there. You asked about Ukraine. We're a coalition of the willing. It's not exclusively European. Australia and New Zealand in that as well, but it's effectively a European plus Canada, those other two countries coalition. So close work there. Straits of Hormuz, working very closely there. G7 French presidency. I mean, there is a series of linkages here.
He's doing a deal with Europe. He wants Canada to be part of the European Union. I can't quite. Well, I think I do know why. All right, let's go back to Pierre Poilievre in Toronto.
The U.S. Ambassador Pete Huckstra is suggesting that allowing American alcohol back on store shelves could lead to movement on tariffs. Do you think it's finally time that premiers like Doug Ford reconsider this policy if it means movement on tariffs?
I think it's time for Mark Carney to actually do something. Like, let's be honest, we have a $1.2 trillion trade relationship with the United States. Alcohol exports from the U.S. to Canada are less than $1 billion. So let's focus on the big picture. After a year of Mark Carney promising that he would negotiate a win by July the 21st of 2025, there's no win, there's no elbows, there's no deal. All we have is double the tariffs on Canadian steel, aluminum, and lumber, and a broadening of tariffs onto many more goods. It's time for Mark Carney to actually take action. Just the other day, he said that it would only take about 10 days to negotiate a deal. Those aren't my words, they're his words. So what is he waiting for? Why doesn't he get this behind us so that we can get back to focusing on making Canada affordable and safe here at home again?
It's true. Mark Carney did say they could probably work out the details in 10 minutes. Which begs the question, well, then why don't you do it? I still maintain that I don't think he wants to. Prime Minister Carney, probably the last one we'll do from him.
The Europeans' expectations are pretty high from Canada about energy, critical minerals, things like that. Do you think there's a risk of a mismatch between some of those projects involve the kind of infrastructure that can generate local resistance, NIMBYism, Poilievre? Is there a risk, do you think, of a mismatch between their expectations and Canadians' understanding of what they're going to have to give and build?
Yeah, Evan, I'm going to just go to your premise there. When we sit down with the Europeans, the first thing they raise is not energy. Okay, energy is something we raise as being part of the solution. They do raise critical minerals. They do raise defense cooperation. They do raise security cooperation, continuing coordination with respect to Ukraine. They do raise a set of issues around artificial intelligence, space cooperation, the entire digital domain, if I can put it that way, where considerable progress is being made. Yes, energy is part of it, but the framing of this is that the discussions between Canada and Europe start with energy and critical minerals. No, that's just not the way it has been. We do raise energy because we think that in nuclear, with respect to LNG, with respect to, yes, critical minerals as part of the broader energy train, we can be part of the solutions here. But that's a more accurate characterization of the way the discussions are going.
Europe wants our critical minerals, but they don't seem to want our oil. That's weird. And the Prime Minister also didn't mention oil. He said nuclear and LNG. Really, really starting to wonder what it is that we're doing here now. The Prime Minister wants us very closely aligned with Europe, other side of the Atlantic. It's not a very practical setup like we have with the Americans who are right on our southern border. It's weird. We don't talk about energy. Really? What else? Really? I don't know if I believe that. Okay, fine. Hey, the Americans would rather keep buying, what, Russian oil? What oil are they using? They seem to be getting screwed over pretty badly by this situation in the Strait of Hormuz. You'd think they'd want a more reliable supply of oil. Or did we tell them we're not sending oil because we want to keep it in the ground? Interesting idea. Now the last one from Pierre Poilievre.
And in an interview with the Canadian press, the Prime Minister said that a new pipeline is more probable than possible. How optimistic are you that this will happen?
More probable than possible. He said he was going to approve projects at speeds not seen in generations. He's been Prime Minister for a year, and he still hasn't even made up his mind whether he supports a pipeline. You know, there's no permit, there's no route, there's no start date, no completion date, no starting point, no end point, and not even a decision by the Prime Minister whether he wants a pipeline at all. And he's wasted an entire year. A pipeline to the Pacific would move $30 billion of oil every year. That's more than our total annual exports to China. So why is Mark Carney still blocking it? You know what this pipeline needs to happen? It needs only one thing: for Mark Carney to get out of the way. It is wildly profitable. It doesn't need any government handouts. It just needs a permit to go ahead. Let's get rid of the industrial carbon tax, the anti-development law C-69, the ban on shipping energy off the north coast of BC, grant the permit today, get the project built so that we can start shipping our oil to the world at world prices, making us stronger, richer, more affordable, and self-reliant.
Good way to wrap it up there from Pierre. Yeah, I guess he's zoning in on this too. The Prime Minister isn't even talking about pipelines anymore. What is going on? Are we doing this or not? Because the majority of Canadians, according to the polls, say they want pipelines. The Prime Minister has had a year. He himself can authorize it. The Conservatives and the Liberals work together to give the Prime Minister the power to authorize a pipeline should he see fit. He's had a year with that ability and hasn't authorized a pipeline. And at some point, you got to ask yourself, why is that? Yeah, you know what? Let's do one more from the Prime Minister before we wrap it up.
Is Canada concerned about the drawdown of U.S. troops in Germany? What does this mean about NATO more generally? How are you thinking about this issue?
Well, we start from this, which is it's our responsibility to fulfill our NATO commitments. That's why we've made the effort and succeeded over the course of the last year to hit that 2% target. There's more to be done. We're going to continue to move forward with that. It's one of the reasons why I'm here, because one of the most efficient and effective ways to meet our NATO obligations is to cooperate with our European partners, other partners, obviously Americans as well, but our European partners, and that's something that's being developed in real time. So it's important at a leader level as well as officials levels to be building that out. The second thing, I sat down with the Secretary General Rutte earlier today. We discussed NATO capacities deployment, the upcoming NATO summit, the priorities in and around there. Obviously, it's of interest and of some concern, speaking for myself, a potential adjustment in U.S. troop forces, but the details are less clear at this stage, and it has to be put against the backdrop of very, very, very considerable American resources, including personnel, but obviously more broadly dedicated to NATO, and a world where Canada, Europe, everybody in that room is taking more responsibility for collective defense.
Okay, the Americans are pulling out a lot of troops from Europe. Ones that were over there on standby at U.S. bases, ready to defend Europe if called upon. But Donald Trump feels like Europe abandoned America. So he's pulling a lot of troops out of Europe and bringing them back home. Very interesting. I'm curious to see where that goes and what the response is going to be from NATO. Last thing I'm going to play on this episode, I think it's something that everyone should hear, and I was quite impressed with this when I heard it. The other day, I was talking about the Member of Parliament for Kitchener Centre, Kelly DeRitter. And again, I hope I'm saying her name right. Kelly stood up in the House of Commons late last week and she made a statement. She told a story about herself that I did not know, but it is an amazing story full of inspiration and hope. And I want to end the pod today on this. This is Member of Parliament Kelly DeRitter in the House of Commons.
Recovered people climb a mountain. But at the very beginning of recovery, all you can see is that mountain in front of you. It feels impossible. It feels endless. And it feels lonely. But if you take one day at a time, one step at a time, you will reach the top. And that is where your life truly begins. There's a big, beautiful, happy, healed life on the other side of addiction. And if you've ever seen a view from the top of a mountain, you know this. Your world opens up. Your possibilities expand. Your future becomes something you can finally imagine. Madam Speaker, I was an addict, sleeping in Victoria Park in Kitchener, Ontario. I slept in the streets and at the women's shelter on Frederick Street, Mary's Place. And now I'm a Member of Parliament representing that very same area. Madam Speaker, the very same area and community I was homeless, I now represent as a Member of Parliament. So if someone hears this, who's struggling or feels trapped at the base of that mountain, I want you to know this. Take that step. Start your healing journey and give yourself the life you deserve. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Here, here. Wow. Here, here. Wow.
Isn't that amazing? What a story. All right, friends, that was a good way to wrap it up. Keep in mind, there is another episode coming out today. That is me making it good. I promised you that if the Blizzard family fundraiser on GoFundMe hit their target before the weekend was over, I would give you the best of Dave. It's a funny one, and that is coming out very, very soon. Check that out, and remember to hit subscribe if you haven't already. It always amazes me that I meet people who have they're regular listeners of the pod, but every day they just go and check for a new episode. Hit that subscribe button. Best way to stay in touch and get new episodes as they come out. It's a brand new month. It's a busy time, and I have got everything you need to know covered right here on Scott Fox After 9. Enjoy your day. I will leave you with the sounds of Pat James and The Whole Truth. Hey now.